I'm Sean Cole, this is the Simpit, and recent events have made me actually wonder, is esport actually killing sim racing, or is it making better? Well, I'm going to give you my top 5 reasons why I think esport is having a negative impact on sim racing. I've been involved in sim racing for over 30 years, and I've been making content for 18 of those years, so I've seen the evolution of sim racing over 3 decades now.
You know, we got full funding for season 1, so we're all set, man. Should we tell them what we got in store for tonight, or should we just get things started?
There was a time when we were thought of as just gamers. Now we're thought of as racers. There was a time when real-life motorsport laughed at us, and now they embrace our hobby, and they actually use it as a marketing tool for the new generation. There was a time where we had very limited licensing deals. So for example, if you want to drive a Porsche, there might only be one sim that even had that car, and now we're seeing most car brands across almost all of the games, or at least we used to. Over the last 30 years, we've seen sim racing grow at a slow and steady pace. But in recent years, with COVID and people being locked down in their homes, and with real-life motorsport literally being black flagged and not on track, we saw a sim racing explosion. Before COVID, if you looked at iRacing on an average night, you'd see about 12,000 drivers. After COVID, or during the COVID period, that number would double or even triple the amount of users. With real-life motorsport being on hold, the already growing esport world exploded as well. Every sanctioning body was scrambling to create some virtual esport series that mimicked their name to continue entertaining their viewers. And they replaced those grids with virtual grids filled with some professional drivers and some sim racers, and in some cases combined. We had IndyCar and NASCAR teaming with iRacing. We had R Factor 2 teaming up with Race and with current Formula 1 drivers. And you had Fanatic and Assetto Corsa Competizione joining forces with the World GT Series. With that came waves and waves of new sim racers by the thousands, the tens of thousands, maybe even by the hundreds of thousands. This was a great time for sim racing, but it did come with some baggage. Esport has changed sim racing, and there is likely no turning back. One could argue that esport has had a negative impact on sim racing despite being a big part of its growth. So stay with me here as I give you my top 5 reasons why esport has had a negative impact on sim racing. Number 1, win at all cost mentality. When sim racing was small or just at a hobby level, we raced for pride, and part of that was doing it fair. Gentlemen racers have filled the grid of amateur ranks for all of eternity of racing, and they've mostly left that cutthroat action to the professional ranks. With so much money entering the esport world, it has changed those rules. Drivers will now push the boundaries of right or wrong with the justification of their actions being, well, we had to maintain sponsors and payouts. Williams.
Don't go through there, but they know that he will get banned, as he got banned, but who cares, because in this race, they still keep in the pole position. Just keep the insides, defense, and make them lose in time. I don't think this is sportsmanship, this is embarrassing for sim racing, a professional team doing this. Let's wait again for 5 minutes. I don't think this is racing. And that's it, he's out of pits. Obviously, his teammate is close, so a couple of laps he will lift for him, and we are back in the tow.
Teams that back these drivers will conspire in these actions, or in the end they'll condone them, or they'll deny them, or they'll try to justify them themselves. And in the end, this really does start to erode the ethics of even the gentleman racer.
I'm out there for one reason, that's to win. It's not to make friends. It's about getting the trophy at all costs.
Number 2, live embarrassment. When we're using big name brands like Formula 1, like Ferrari Esport, or big name drivers like Max Verstappen, a lot of eyes or a lot of attention is being given to our esport. In fact, we even have mainstream media covering our events at this point. When these big events do go wrong, whether it be server crashes, messed up matchmaking, cheating, or even rage quitting, sim racing looks bad with a whole lot of eyes watching us.
Still there. Yep, he just came up and wrecked the hell out of you again on purpose.
Y'all have it going.
Back block.
That's it. That's why I don't take this shit serious.
Sorry, Tyler. Just trying to talk to you there.
We've seen all of these things happen with the big media covering, and in the end, they're laughing at us and our little wannabe sport.
We end up looking like a monkey fucking a football out there.
Number 3, sim companies focused attention on esport instead of on sim racers. When I look at the news feed of a good amount of sim racing companies now, it's really unclear to me whether they're a sim racing company or an esport company or even a real life racing company, with their feeds being heavily dominated with articles and postings about esport. This could be multiple posts about an upcoming race, multiple posts about the very race, and then multiple more posts following up on the race, all leading into the next week to do it all again. And as a sim racer, I'm trying to read between all of these articles, looking for tidbits of information that might apply to me. Updates on the game, updates on hardware, new product releases, the things that matter to me. In the case of Fnatic and the case of the Formula 1 game, we hear more about real-life motorsport than we do about their actual products. Number 4, big companies, big money, controlling information and controlling the invite list. We've given away our control. In fact, it was just outright bought from underneath us. So when big name companies from Formula 1 or real life motorsport created their own esport teams, it displaced a lot of the higher echelon sim racing teams that have been in existence for a long time. Granted, the top teams, they have survived and they are into that upper echelon now, but it did create a line making it virtually impossible for new teams to come into the horizon. They now control who will be on these teams and who will be eligible for the big money. It is no longer that ladder system based on talent of yesteryear. Beyond the real-life motorsports coming into esport, we've also seen big money conglomerates get involved as well, and they're actually pushing the boundaries of right and wrong. For example, Motorsport Games comes into sim racing and they buy up 704 Games and its NASCAR assets. That's followed by buying Studio 397 and all the possessions of that company as well. And with this company also creating and owning Traxion GG, they own the media outlet, meaning they're controlling the information that we sim racers get to know about as well. They have the rights to the virtual Le Mans, as well as the rights to the IndyCar franchise. But that company is now having issues ranging from failed events to filing bankruptcy to having lawsuits from former employees, putting all of those assets in jeopardy for the future. Another question mark at this point that I do remain optimistic for is Rensport. Here we have a game that is being built with esport in mind from the very get-go, and they're trying to launch the esport and we haven't even really seen the game yet. It's still not completed, yet they're determined to launch the esport competition that goes along with the game. In this case, their esport list was an invite list only, with a few honored teams that they selected or chose themselves, with a few general gaming teams thrown into the mix too. How are they going to compete at that level? How did they earn that spot? How is that even going to work out? Number 5, licensing is getting worse, not better. So having watched sim racing grow up for 30 years, I do remember a time where if you wanted to drive a Porsche, you would probably be able to drive a car that resembled a Porsche, sounded like a Porsche, but didn't have any actual branding. It was, thank God, the modding community, because if you wanted to drive a Ferrari, a Lamborghini, or a Porsche, you had to do it through some somewhat illegal mod, but it did give us the ability to drive just about any car and any track in the world. Now, over time, I've seen a reduction in that exclusive licensing. Car manufacturers were seeing the benefits of marketing through sim racing, and then instead of having exclusive licenses, it was more of an open license, allowing just about any car to go in any game. With esport, we're seeing a changing of the tide. We are seeing a retraction of that openness. Suddenly, these companies want their control back, and we're seeing these licensing issues being thrown back in our face. Virtual Le Mans, IndyCar, Formula 1, NASCAR, what's next? Daytona? Spa? Will it be Ferrari and Porsche once again? I guess it was nice while it lasted. So in the end, it does make me feel like as a sim racer that we're being passed over in the name of esport. But I don't think this is the end of the story. Esport still has to prove itself. There is a lot of money that has been invested in esport over the years, and if they can't sustain the viewership, if they can't sustain the enthusiasm, then it's going to end up drying up and putting the focus back on us, the sim racers, again. And at that point, I guess all these companies are going to have to relearn that opening up the licenses and allowing them to be in games across the board is a better marketing opportunity than trying to have controlling interest in sim racing. After all, that's not what you really do. Now, please forgive me. I know this has been a very negative outlook on what's been going on, but with recent events like Max Verstappen telling the entire world to uninstall a game.
Oh, I think I'm gonna uninstall the game. That's nice. Frees up a bit of space on the PC anyway. And I really hope everyone installs the game.
With the Williams, the now infamous William cheating incident going on, with iRacing losing the IndyCar license and crying about it as they actually cling on and block other licenses themselves, it really does put a focus on what's going on in the sim racing world right now. But is it all doom and gloom? No, it's not. Esport has had a very positive effect on sim racing as well. There is now more money, there are now more competitions than ever before, with more sim racers making a legitimate living as sim racers. This was not even possible 10 years ago. This was not even possible at this level before the esport explosion. We always dreamed of this, and on top of that, we have more people watching sim racing than ever before, which is a whole other opportunity. Think of how many more streamers there are now. Think of how many more content creators there are now, all because of the focus and the eyes and the amount of people getting involved in sim racing. The other benefit is for us, the sim racers. The hardware explosion that went along with it. With so many people coming into sim racing, it allowed more and more companies to start making pedals, shifters, handbrakes, steering wheels. We're even starting to see an increase in the amount of sim racing companies making games again. And despite all the talk that we've done today about licenses, you do have to admit that we do have better relationships with car manufacturers, with racing sanctioning bodies and other forms of motorsport than we've ever had before. So even if things change, just those handshake deals, just the embracement of NASCAR, Formula One, Ferrari, Porsche, McLaren, all of these teams being able to have their names on steering wheels is also a result of this esport affiliation with these real life teams. And esport has been a big part of all of that. So what do you think? Have I been too harsh? Am I being unrealistic? I would love to hear your thoughts on this topic in the comments of this video. I hope you enjoyed the video. Be sure to give it a thumbs up if you did. If you hate it, if you didn't like what I'm talking about, feel free to give it a thumbs down just so I know as well. But thank you for watching nonetheless. This is the Simpit. I'm Sean Cole, and I'll see you on the track.